I've been trying to figure out how to start this video, but honestly, that show was just too good. Hi y'all, Snarky J Cosplay here. As of last night at 9 p.m., the first episode of HBO's The Last of Us is now streaming. I have to preface this review by telling y'all that I am a huge fan of The Last of Us. I got The Last of Us back when I got my PS4 when they both had just come out, and it actually turned out to be one of the first games that I played all by myself from start to finish. And that might not sound all that impressive, but I was like 12 or 13, I think, by the time that came out, so it was kind of a big deal for me. And since then, I've played The Last of Us in its entirety literally like 5 times, start to finish, and I consider myself fully immersed every time I play it. I love it. I will admit, I did not play The Last of Us 2. I had gotten a little bit smarter about dropping $60 on a game I didn't know anything about, and so after I waited a week and heard what so many people had to say about it, I refused to acknowledge its existence, so I haven't played The Last of Us 2. But The Last of Us 1 is one of my favorite games of all time, I can tell you that. So when this show got announced, I honestly was excited, but also based on what I've seen from video game to screen adaptations recently, I was definitely cautious about it. It's not that difficult to find examples of great games being ruined by terrible movies and TV show adaptations. The Assassin's Creed movie was trash, and I've been a huge Assassin's Creed fan since I learned how to play video games, pretty much. The folks that made the Halo show admitted to not even playing the game, and as we've talked about on this channel before, the people that are working on The Witcher over at Netflix hate the game, hate the books, to the point that Henry Cavill dropped that sword and said, I'm out of here. So I did not have much faith when it came to The Last of Us. For the non-spoiler part of my review, I'm gonna start off with my rating of, wait for it, 10 out of 10. Yeah. I'm giving the first episode of The Last of Us a solid 10 out of 10. I don't give a lot of those. Andor got a couple. There's a couple movies that I think that have come close. But this episode was absolutely amazing. A lot of the shots in this episode are shot for shot recreations of the game. Even some of the dialogue is exactly ripped from the game. A lot of the dialogue, actually, is ripped directly from the game. And there are some lines that when I heard them spoken in the show, I thought automatically this show was made for us, and it was made with love. A lot of these video game adaptations are made with the idea of let's rake in some money, let's bring in some new fans, and let's basically just put out some crap that is gonna get big buzz on Twitter. And sure, people have been buzzing about this show since it was announced, but this deserves the buzz because it is one of the most faithful adaptations of anything I've ever seen brought to screen. I'm not afraid to say that. I know that we've got a lot of episodes left of this, but this is amazing. Now I want to talk about the casting for a second. I was not entirely on board with Pedro Pascal playing Joel. I know that I talk about Pedro Pascal on this channel a lot because I admittedly have sort of an appreciation for him, but I didn't see him as Joel. I'm gonna be real with you. I didn't see that he was gonna be our Joel, and this is coming from somebody who was like 13 or so and was like obsessed with him, so I didn't see it. But in the first 5 to 10 minutes of this episode, I actually stopped seeing Pedro Pascal. I stopped seeing Oberyn Martell and Din Djarin and everybody else that he's ever played, and I just saw and felt Joel, and I think that that is absolutely amazing. Bella Ramsey as Ellie, we didn't get a whole lot of her in this episode, but she is perfect. I've seen a lot of people complaining about the face not being an exact match. At the end of the day, motion capture was used to make The Last of Us, so her face already exists and it's on like 2 other people. This isn't cosplay. What's important here is not that it looks exactly like what it looked like in the game. The point is that it has to have the same energy. The people have to have the same energy. The characters have to be true to who they were in the video game, and Bella Ramsey does an incredible job as Ellie so far. I'm really excited to see the rest of it. I think the other casting choices were brilliant. In this first episode, we are introduced to some major characters like Tommy, who is Joel's brother, Tess, who is Joel's partner in crime for a time, Marlene, who's gonna be a pretty big name in the Fireflies, and honestly speaking, as somebody who's played the game a million frickin' times, perfect casting choices, perfect acting decisions. I'm super pleased as far as that is concerned. Another big hit for me with this episode is the fact that for this show, they've actually brought back the original score for the game. The music for the game was made by Gustavo Santaolalla, and I frickin' am so excited to hear it. I actually have had the entire soundtrack downloaded on Apple Music for like a million years, so it makes me really happy to hear that really great guitar playing brought back to this series. The aesthetics in this show are also absolutely phenomenal. It's all really true to the game. In the show, the outbreak actually starts in 2003, so that we're now in 2023 in Joel's timeline when the show really picks up, and I think that that was a great choice because it definitely feels like it's a little more real for us. The effects that they have brought in to better build the post-pandemic world are absolutely phenomenal. You definitely feel like you're part of it. There's nothing that's unconvincing. Everything is made to fully immerse you, just as playing the video game would have. I will say the show also does a brilliant job of making sure to really reel in people who haven't played the games. We all know that at the end of the day, these shows might be made about video games that have huge fan bases, but they need to attract people outside of it, because at the end of the day, not everybody's a gamer. Not everybody who might have an interest in this series has played the video games, so they're gonna need that background. They're gonna need to be reeled in, unlike us who are basically a captive audience because we're obsessed with the game. And this show actually does a brilliant job of that. There's a lot more exposition with Sarah, Joel's daughter. Honestly, again, the acting, the writing, the directing, every part of this show feels like incredible quality. It doesn't feel like any corners were cut in terms of quality, in terms of budget. We're only one episode in, and they could still screw it up. They could still screw it up, I'll give you that. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't think they will, and they'd have to go pretty far south to ruin it, because this so far has been absolutely incredible. Like I said, I give this episode a 10 out of 10. It is a faithful adaptation of one of the best video games to ever be released. It's got something for everybody. It feels like it's meant not just for fans of the video game, but it's also got something to attract new people. I definitely think that this is going to be a show worth watching week to week, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the rest of it, even though you and I both know where the story's gonna go. Now from here on, I am gonna talk about some parts of the episode that if you haven't seen it or haven't played the game, you don't want it to be spoiled, there will be spoilers ahead for you. So I'm giving you that warning right now. From this point on, there will be spoilers ahead. You've been warned. I wanna talk about how much more of Sarah we get in this episode than we did in the game. We kinda don't really get a lot of her before she's eventually murdered by the army, but in this show, we actually get quite a bit more of her relationship with Joel. Even if it's just a few minutes, it actually does so much more to make me care about the character and her connection to her father. Even though I'm already really invested in Joel as a character just because I love the game, I think that for new people, newcomers, people that haven't played the games, or maybe people that weren't really all that connected to Joel as a person, it's definitely really great writing to show so much more of Sarah at the beginning so that we know exactly what kind of person he's lost. And the way that they build the tension as we're starting to learn more about this outbreak, it honestly brought back some really weird memories for me. I was in my second year of college when our pandemic started, and I remember walking through campus feeling uneasy every time I heard anybody cough. And they eventually closed down my campus and I had to stay home, but that unease that Sarah shows in this episode really made me feel like, yeah, this is real. I thought it was really great to start the episode with a talk show of a couple scientists talking about how this is a fungus and all that. The cordyceps thing, when I saw it on bugs a couple of years ago, literally traumatized me. So I think it's really cool that they actually made it a point to explain a little bit more to viewers of the show what exactly the sickness is. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about that scene. Now, I did mention that when I played The Last of Us for the very first time, I was on the younger side, and I'm also one of those people that prides themselves on not crying during movies or video games. Of course, there have been more than a few that have knocked that rule out of place for me, but I really didn't feel all that affected by Sarah's death. I felt affected and I felt for Joel and I thought it was an emotional moment, but because it happened so early on in the game and you really don't get that much of her or that much of Joel, you're not really all that connected to them. So it's kind of just a big bummer, or that's how I felt about it anyway. But now, knowing everything that I know, having played the game so many times, and with the acting chops of Pedro Pascal, I mean, that scene, I teared up, I'll admit. I was choked up. It's a shot-for-shot recreation of the game, and yet Pedro Pascal took that scene and ran with it. He made it his own. It didn't feel like an imitation. It felt like a true adaptation. It was absolutely amazing. It was heartfelt, and that jump 20 years later felt so true to the game. Another highlight for me that I felt like I was playing the game all over again, the scene where they're driving through Texas in that truck trying to figure out how to get to the highway, and they end up in the city where there's people running and planes exploding and buildings are on fire. I've never seen anything that was made for the screen feel so much like a video game, and yet it didn't feel disjointed. It just felt accurate. I felt like the meeting, I felt like even the first meeting between Joel and Ellie felt true to their energy in the game. I don't have enough praise to give this series so far. I normally, admittedly, am not this stoked about anything that I review on this channel, but this game has meant the world to me for years. I mean, at this point, it's been almost 10 years since its release, and 10 years later, it still feels that relevant. God, they're just killing it. I don't even know what to say. I wish I had something to critique so that I could come up with something funny to tell you guys. I didn't even write an outline for this video. That's how good I thought the show was. I knew that I just wanted to come here and I wanted to tell you how great it was. I have full faith in this series moving forward. It honestly was one of the greatest hour and 10 minutes of television that I have ever seen. I am so excited. It feels good. Last year was a lot. We had to watch She-Hulk and Kenobi and Book of Boba Fett, but this is quality television, folks. That's all I gotta say. I've been Snarky J. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on the first episode of The Last of Us in the comments below.